Now, the reason the book of Revelation was written is because those heavenly citizens still reside on earth, where the beast persecutes them, wishing to take away their heavenly citizenship if he could. He wants their worship, and in order to obtain it, he persecutes them. He does far more than persecution, but so far as we see in our passage this morning, he persecutes them in two distinct ways, in which we find in verses 6 and 7. First, he blasphemes God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. In other words, he speaks falsehood concerning both God and his heavenly people. This includes blaspheming God's name by claiming to be God himself, a claim of self-deification. But it also includes blaspheming God's dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven, the text says. Now, some think that this is referring to those who are presently in heaven, those who have gone before us to be with the Lord in heaven, whose souls have gone to be presently with the Lord. But it's actually referring to all of God's people, whether in heaven or still here on earth. The New Testament teaches that we have all been raised with Christ and seated in the heavenly places with him, and that in Christ we are presently being built together as a dwelling place for God. That word there in our text for dwelling is actually the word specifically for tabernacle. And so he blasphemes God's name and God's tabernacle, his dwelling, his tabernacle. And in the previous chapter, we saw that the church was pursued into the wilderness by the dragon. You see, the church is presently tabernacling with God in the wilderness, just as Old Testament Israel did in their exodus from Egypt. Once again, you see, Revelation is presenting God's people as a heavenly people. We are his dwelling. And our dwelling is ultimately in heaven. That is, those who dwell in heaven. We are a heavenly people with a heavenly citizenship. Though we reside on earth, our dwelling is with God in heaven. And so the beast speaks falsehoods and accusations, not only against God's name, but also against those who are tabernacling with him in this present age. And so that is the first form. That's the first form of persecution. The second form of persecution is he physically oppresses them if they do not worship him, even putting them to death if necessary. Verse 7 says that the beast was allowed, so this is an allowance from God, was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And this is explicitly described down in verse 15, where we are told that the beast will even slay those who do not worship him. This, beloved, is part of the tribulation that the saints endure throughout this age until Christ returns. And so the book of Revelation was written to exhort the church to endure in their faith throughout this age of tribulation. Don't give in to the pressures and persecutions of the beast. The book of Revelation then provides us with the appropriate response to our afflictions from the beast. It's very simple. Continue to worship Christ despite your persecutions. Profess him as Lord and God, not the beast, who is an image of a miserable creature that merely knows how to counterfeit God. Verse 13 says it most clearly. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. Verse 10, actually.